Hello, everyone. Welcome to Camera Culture, a series from Well FM that puts the diverse creators of the NFT photography movement into focus. I'm your host, Decryptolorian. My very special guest today is Yulia Denisyuk. Yulia is a freelance travel photographer, writer, and entrepreneur. Her work has appeared in National Geographic, BBC, Time, Lonely Planet, and many more. Her work blurs the lines between street photography, documentary photography, travel photography, and art. Welcome, Yulia. I'm very, very excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you so much, DC. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and I can't wait to chat with you.
I cannot wait. I've been wanting to chat with you for a while, and I've seen you in the space. I mean, you've made yourself a major presence here, and I love it. And honestly, the pleasure is all ours to have you here.
By the way, can I just say that the countdown, the music was so cool. I was already like jamming into the music. That was really awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I do the same thing. You can't really see it. My head moves in weird ways, but yeah, I like to dance to that too before it goes on.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Man, this is great. So before we get started with some questions, for those of us that don't know you, I know a lot of people do so far these days, but for those of us who don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, so hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming today and tuning in. I really appreciate it. My name is Yulia Denisyuk, and I'm a travel photographer and writer, just like DC said. And I have a very sort of um, a story that has many different elements, many different lifetimes I lived in my life. I was born in Kazakhstan. I grew up in Estonia, and I've lived in the United States for the past 20 years now. Oh my goodness. And I've been I've worked in corporate America. I've served in the US Navy. I was a travel agent, so I had many different careers. But 6 years ago is when I decided that I will go into the career that I've always wanted to be, which is travel storytelling, photography, writing. And I made that jump 6 years ago, and I haven't looked back. And it's been the most incredible journey of my life so far, and I'm really grateful for it. So that's a really short version of it.
Yeah. I just I get a little selfish on these interviews, but before we dive into some scripted questions, what is the you lived over in Estonia and different places in the world, and you've been a lot of different places too. From looking at your photography, how did the switch to the United States? I mean, how did you feel about that? Do you like the States better, or do you miss your other places that you've lived?
Oh, what a question. I love this question. Well, I came to the States when I was 16. And if you ever seen, or if you remember being a teenager yourself, when you are changing your environment at that time, it's really difficult because at that time, your whole life is your friends. And I left all my friends behind in Estonia, and I came to the United States, and it was really difficult for me. The culture shock was huge because, now the world is becoming more homogenized in many ways. But, 20, 30 years ago, it was still, Estonia that just came out of the Soviet Union. And, the US was very different from what I knew and what I grew up in. So it was a huge culture shock for me and a huge learning curve as well, to move at 16, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't mind, where did you settle? Did you the East Coast, West Coast, middle? I'm just curious.
I settled at a place that probably out of all the places in the US that had the biggest potential for a culture shock, because I from a very cold, very North European place of Estonia, I went to Miami, Florida, party all the time. You can imagine for a 16-year-old, I got a car for the first time ever in my life, and driving with boys, skipping school, everything you can imagine about Miami, that was happening.
Wow, that's crazy. I want to keep going with this line a bit. did that move? So, picking up a camera, did you pick a camera up from a young age? Or did you get into that later on in life?
I did. My first camera was actually a very small point and shoot Kodak, a film Kodak that my dad gave me for my 10th birthday. So that's when my journey with photography had started. And I was photographing everything. Of course, my friends, but also, my cat, my dog, the streets, the trees. I would just immediately, I just connected with it so much, and I wanted to document everything in my life. So yeah, from 10 years old, I've been having a camera by my side.
Wow, that's awesome. And moving to the US and seeing this, having this culture shock, in Miami, that cracks me up. Um, you know, did it did your view of the world change? Did your technique change when taking, photography?
Oh, for sure. I mean, my photography has changed so much, even in the past 6 years, because that's when I really started doing it professionally in the past 6 years. And if I look at my work from 6 years ago and I look at my work today, I see a huge evolution. I see, I see progress. Because I think that photography, this is what I love about photography, is that it's really representing you as a person. What you see out there in the world and how you see the world, it's because of you. It's because of your your character, your experiences. You bring all of this to the camera and to that moment when you take the shot. So as you change, as you grow, as you move through the world, I think it's natural that your style and your vision can change. But yeah, no, it was. Sorry, I forgot I forgot what your question was.
Basically, going from a different part of the world into this culture shock of you're in this
Mhm.
party place, right? And
Yeah.
you're doing all these new things, seeing all these new things, and honestly, if I moved to Miami right now, it'd be a culture shock for me. But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, did your style did it affect you? I mean, you kind of answered already. Did it really
Mhm.
affect how you take photos, how you see the world, how you may think about things differently?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So at that point, I wasn't taking photos professionally. I was taking photos to document what was happening with me.
Gotcha.
Up until probably 10 years ago or so, that's sort of how I approached photography. I was taking photos to document what was happening in my life. So in Miami, it was a lot of palm trees, it was a lot of ocean, it was a lot of my car. I had a 1991 Buick that had no air conditioning in Miami.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. I kind of feel that, but yep. All right.
So yeah, I had a lot of photos of my Buick, and I would send, because back then we printed photos out, right? And
Yeah.
so I would send a lot of these photos to my friends back in Estonia, because we would send each other imagine we would send each other letters back and forth, because back then that's what you did, right? You wrote these huge letters. And I would send them my letters, and I would include all these images of, my car, the beach, the ocean. So that's sort of how photography was present in my life back then.
Gotcha. And so it's like you are documenting your life and you're showing your friends. And I'm just curious, what was your friends' responses to that?
Oh my, I mean, and this is actually why travel fascinates me that much, because the way people live in different places around the world can be just such a different realm, such a different world from what you experience on a daily basis. So, and that's why it was such a huge culture shock for me. And my friends, when they would see my letters and my photos, they were just shocked. They couldn't imagine that somewhere out there people live like that. That at 16 you can have a car, for example. You know, it was unthinkable back then for especially for a person of my background, because I grew up poor. It was just me and my mom, and in fact that was the whole reason why I ended up in the States, because my mom came here when I was 14 and I stayed in Estonia by myself. She came to US to work, And, at 16, 2 years later, I joined her. But it was just unimaginable to have a car at that age and to go work at a restaurant. I worked as a waitress at that time in Estonia at 14, 16, 17 years old. People don't work. It's just not, the lifestyle is so different. So I love that about travel, that we get to go and see and really expand our definition of what is possible in the world, or what does it even mean to be and to live in the world when you see so many different ways that people live. I love that.
Wow. And man, so that was so I resonate with that a lot because yeah, I kind of had a similar story, except not so far away. I moved from California to Vermont, which is
Oh yeah.
was definitely a culture shock. So that's why I said I understand when your car had no air conditioner, because I'll tell you, when you don't have an air conditioner in California, boy, you're in trouble. But
Definitely.
No, I get that, and I think it's really cool that that you had this experience where you grew up somewhere else, you came over to the States, you got to see a different way of life. You're sharing that with your friends, and then to me it sounds like that's kind of your passion. You want to share these experiences and document. I'm going to put some of your work on the screen for people to look at. Why I ask you more wonderful questions. Yeah, when did you decide that photography was going to be your thing?
When did I decide? Well, I had it, I had this passion my whole life, and I got my first DSLR in I think 2007 or something. And I always had the camera by me, and I was, developing the style, my style and my vision, but I just never saw photography as a viable career path. I didn't know anybody who was doing that, and as an immigrant in this country, we have a lot of pressure to succeed in the most traditional sense of the word. So, I followed all the steps. I went to school. I joined the military. I went to grad school. I have an MBA degree actually that I'm not using anymore, but that I worked in corporate for. But I didn't see people around me that were doing what I wanted to do, and that's actually also why being in the NFT community is so exciting, because I've already met so many amazing people in this community who are like-minded, right? And that's so important. But when I decided that, it was actually when I reached almost the point of no return in my corporate career. I was working a job that was extremely difficult. We had insane hours. I worked 80, 90 hours a week, nights, weekends, really stressful job. And at some point, I couldn't understand anymore why I'm doing that, because it wasn't what I wanted to do. I had absolutely no passion for it, but I was I felt like I was on this train that was going somewhere, but it wasn't my train. It wasn't my life. I was sort of fulfilling someone else's path. So I reached a point of burnout actually. And that's when I decided, now or never, I need to go and try to do what I've always wanted to do, which is to travel, to tell stories, to share stories about people and places. And yeah, that was 2016. And I'm so grateful that I had the courage to do that, because if I stayed in corporate, it probably my soul and something inside of me would have died for sure, because it was not a good path for me.
Oh man, that gave me chills a bit, because I'm stuck in that myself a bit sometimes.
Yes.
Where I hear you 100%. It's you're brave. That decision is a tough one. I mean, I struggle with that a lot. I think, hey, maybe I want to just quit this thing, that I've been doing a while and I put a lot of time and effort into, and I want to go do what I actually like, and I think you're really brave for taking that leap. And honestly, so man, I guess my question is, I mean, this is 2016, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just, I mean, it hasn't been that long.
No.
But looking at your photography here, I'm just scrolling down for everybody to see. I mean, you have this vibrant breadth of work that's just really, really good. And like I said, it hasn't been that long. How? Like, how do you? I mean, this is like this is like masterclass. I mean, all of these shots are fantastic. And you know, I in my intro I mentioned that, you know, you've been in Nat Geo and BBC and all kinds of places. How do you go? Did this start? Did this, like, your foot hit the pavement in 2016, or are some of these shots before that?
No, so all the work that you see here is 2016 and further on. So I first want to actually comment on your thank you for saying that I was brave, but I honestly don't think it was well, even though I said I had courage, but courage, yes, but also, you know, I was in a space where I was like, I need to change because my body started giving out. You know, I couldn't even physically be in the office anymore. I couldn't sit at the desk. I had started having issues with my back because my body started telling me, hey, something needs to change here. This is bad for you. You know, so it wasn't maybe so much bravery as necessity, even at that point. And the other thing I want to say is that the thing that I didn't mention yet is that I got let go from my job, and they gave me a separation package.
Okay.
And so I had a runway of about 6 months to do
Wow.
this because I people say that all the time: quit your job, follow your dreams. But honestly, like, realistically speaking, how do you do that if you have a mortgage, if you have bills, if you have a family to support? Like, let's get real here, right? And so I want to bring this up always. I always bring this up because, you know, that's how, honestly, if they didn't let me go from that career or that job, I probably still would have been in corporate because like you're saying, it's extremely difficult to do this, especially if you have obligations, you know. And now I'm so grateful that that happened because, you know, it was a shock to me. It never happened to me before. I was always an overachiever, and you know, but there was some, you know, there was some things happening with our brand and with the company, and so they let me go. But you know, it was the best thing that could have happened to me because that gave me the runway to travel for 6 months around the world, take photos, understand, figure out what my style is. And so some of the shots that you're seeing here, they're from that period where I went and I lived 1 month in Vietnam, 1 month in Thailand, 1 month in Istanbul. I sort of did something that I've always wanted to do. And that's where I built up my portfolio initially, you know, because I started at zero. I had no idea of how this travel photography thing works. So I used that time to really build up my portfolio and get a better understanding of that.
Wow. That's amazing. And I would say that it was a godsend that they did let you go.
Yes.
You know, shame on them because they lost a really good person. But also, I mean, that's awesome because you found something that you're you know, it's your passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're really good at it.
Thank you so much.
So it's, you know, it's a win-win for, you know, maybe not for them but for you. I think, you know. Wow.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I'm very grateful that that happened to me because that put me on this path. That's why I'm here today, you know, and I'm so grateful.
Wow. Oh, that's fantastic. You know, so here's a question. As a creative, you know, what are your professional or artistic goals that are extremely important to you?
Yeah. You know, I think about this so much because I got into travel photography and storytelling for one reason and one reason only. Every time I travel, I see the world. I see the world as an incredible place, full of amazing people, of all walks of life, of all kinds of religions and backgrounds and cultures. And I see that even though we're so different and we're so diverse, fundamentally we're all the same because we all want the same things. We all want to be safe. We want to have a roof over our head. We want to have a nice meal. We want to have good things for our children. We want to have a good time. And that I see again and again everywhere I go. However, I also see that in a lot of places around the world, we're moving into the wrong direction. We're moving into separation. We're moving into thinking we're different, that they, us versus them, that, you know, we should be afraid of the other. And that's why I'm also very passionate to do work, particularly in the Middle East region, because my experiences in the Middle East have been just incredible. Always, you know, I am in love with that region. But our world is a complicated place right now, and there is a lot of xenophobic, fearful sentiments. And so this is actually what underlies all of my work, underpins it. That you know, the stories I want to tell, the work I want to pursue is, you know, that's what I always aim to do, is to instill that sense of sharing fundamental values and understanding that, yes, we're so different, we're so diverse, but at the end of the day, we're all human, and our world is beautiful, and we should see more of it. So that's really what drives my work.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it's the fear that hurts us all. You know, at times the fear of many different things, but our differences are beautiful, to be quite honest. And you know, it's what makes us interesting as human beings.
Absolutely, absolutely. I created this kind of a bit cheeky formula. Oh, wait, let me see if I can remember it now. Our fear of the other is inversely related to the amount of tea we share.
Okay.
Our fear of the other is inversely related to the amount. The more tea we share, the less fear of the other we have. Basically, that's kind of a thing I always say. You know.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. We should be sharing tea a lot, I think.
We should be sharing tea more. Yeah, that's so true.
Oh man. So now I know that, you know, like you said, sometimes we get real, right? So the commercial side of things. When you are exploring these places, do you think about the commercial? Are you just straight, hey, I'm going to take some photography, you know, and put out what I like, or are you also thinking about the commercial side at the same time?
So it has evolved quite a bit, right? Because when I started, again, like I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't know, you know, I didn't know anybody in the industry. I didn't know what this travel photography thing is. My goal was to be working with travel publications, travel magazines. Really, that's, you know, that's been my dream for a long time. But I had no idea how to do it. I didn't know anybody in those places. So when I started traveling and taking photos, it was really just, let me take these photos, you know, and let's see what happens. Now, of course, it's very different. Now I know how the industry works. Now I know what I need to do. And in fact, most of the times now I'm traveling not on my own, but I'm traveling on assignment. So either a magazine is sending me or a tourism board is sending me. And it's, you know, most of the time it's like that now. But at the beginning, it was just really me moving blindly, you know, a lot of trial and error, and just trying to figure out how to make this a reality for myself. In fact, I want to show, if you scroll up a little bit,
Sure.
That this picture right here, this man, his name is Ali. He's the owner of a Bedouin camp in the desert of Wadi Rum, Jordan, which for those of you who are watching and who've been in my spaces and talked to me, you guys know that Wadi Rum is my favorite place on earth. I love that desert so much. It's a really magical place. But I want to just illustrate how that evolution, that journey has evolved for me, because I took this picture in 2017, early 2017. I was there in Jordan, and he, you know, I asked him, "May I please take your portrait?" He said, "Sure." And then he kind of jokingly asked me, "Is this for National Geographic?" And I said, "Yes, it is." even though at that point I wasn't yet published, I didn't, you know, again, I was just starting out. I had no clue what I was doing. Fast forward 2 years later, this photo is published in a story I did on the Bedouins of Jordan for National Geographic. It was a 4 or 5 page spread in their print magazine. And that image has ended up in the National Geographic. I sent him the copy of the magazine. We had a very good laugh about it. But that's the evolution that I had, little by little. I figured out how to work with the magazines I wanted to work, how to work with tourism boards, how to make this my life. Basically, ultimately, this is what, like, I live and breathe travel, storytelling, photography, writing, like, and I'm so happy that this is what I do. I don't make as much money as I used to in corporate at all. Like, I took a huge pay cut, but I am so happy. These past 6 years have been the best years of my life because I get to do what I want to do. I get to travel to incredible places. I've been to on assignment. I've been like sent by a magazine or a tourism board to Rwanda, Mongolia, Austria, California. I have an assignment coming up in the Black Forest where I'll see our dear friend Pascal. If you're listening, our NFT photographer Pascal, we're going to be meeting there. So I'm extremely grateful that this is my life now, because this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow, I love that story. And honestly, growing up and reading a lot of the National Geographic, that was like the best magazine in my opinion. I would read a lot of those stories, so I'm a little starstruck, honestly, that because those, I mean, that's amazing. And the fact, so I want to go back to that. You said these are the happiest years of your life, and you took a pay cut. And I almost think that it's important for me, anyways, as well, to say that the monetary aspect of life isn't always, the most happy that it could make, right? I mean, it doesn't attribute to happiness. I mean, you can buy a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I think that I mean, this is my view too. I think it's more important to do what you love. Because when you get to the end of life, I mean, what are you going to look back? I got a bunch of numbers and in my bank account that I don't get to do anything with, or I had all these experiences that were just, it made my life rich, so
Yeah.
wow, I love that your perspective is like that, because I do feel that way myself, big time.
Yeah, I did too, DC. And I actually don't think that everyone feels that way. In fact, when I was in corporate, I looked at my coworkers around me and I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? I wish I could enjoy this. I had a good salary. I mean, we were working a lot, very, very stressful, very big hours, long hours, but you have a salary. I mean, how amazing is that? And you're pretty comfortable with that, and they were happy, my coworkers, but I just had this very strong feeling in my chest that this is not mine. I am meant for something else, and I just couldn't ignore that feeling. And so that's why I knew I had to take that pay cut, because I mean, I'm being very frank now. I was making six-figure salary at that point.
Yeah.
I was, moving up in corporate, whatever. But I was miserable. I was the most miserable in my life. So yeah, I'm very happy that I changed.
I'm so glad. Yeah, you could hear it in your voice and everything. I think it's a great change, honestly. So, and this is where, obviously, I mean, we look at these shots. You're talking about going, working for these amazing magazines, and doing something that you love. And when did you learn about the NFT space?
So I started hearing about this late last year, and a photographer that I know and respect on Instagram, she started posting about the space, and she started posting how, really more women need to get into the space, because there aren't that many women photographers participating. And before she posted that, I wasn't considering, because I heard about the NFT space, but there is a misconception, and it still exists, by the way, because I talked to a lot of women photographers who are outside of the space looking in.
Mm-hmm.
There is a misconception that we don't belong here, that this space is not for us, because they, for whatever reason, they do not see the incredible photographic community of the NFT space. They see the Bored Apes and the PFP project side of it, maybe because of the media, because that's what's being talked about more. But the photographic community is really not front and center, at least for the photographers that I talk to in outside of the NFT space. And they have this sort of, in fact, I actually receive a lot of bad comments. I recently posted on Instagram that, this is what I'm doing. I love my NFT community. And people were like, I'm going to unfollow you because I cannot believe that you're participating in that scam. So,
Wow.
it's crazy that there are these misconceptions. So, I always say that we need to do, we need to be the, what's the word I'm looking for? We need to share our experiences with people, with artists who are, on the outside looking in and perhaps are curious about the space but don't really see themselves in it. We need to share more about our experience because it's so important that more people, that artists don't get left behind, basically. Because I think we all here, we believe that this is the future. The underlying technology for sure is here to stay. So how do we become part of this, right? How do we be part of this? And I think we need to share more. But yeah, so sorry, I got sidetracked. But my friend, yeah, so this photographer I follow, she posted about NFTs. I think it was January when I first started kind of looking into this space, January of this year. And yeah, the rest is, I guess, history. It's been a wild ride.
Wow. Yeah, I want to explore that. What we're talking about here. I absolutely think this space is for everybody.
Me
I
too.
I think so there is the bad, right? There's a lot of talk and and Instagram, and I hear that a lot. The
Hmm.
unfollows and everything. What's interesting about Instagram, so just to respond to that a bit, is that their Instagram, it has their own NFT marketplace being developed. So
Yes.
and I've honestly I've seen a lot of cycles, being in the space long enough now, and that you're here. And so when I'm seeing you here and I'm seeing you talk about your experience so far, and and this photography community that I love. Actually, I'm a huge fan of the photography community.
Hmm.
It reminds me of the this artistic explosion that was a couple years before,
Mm.
that I experienced myself, and it's so energetic. And then we went through this period of time where we did have those projects, like the one you mentioned, that were getting the media push because of the monetary value associated with them.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that we lost a little bit of that special, that energy, that special flavor, that that the technology behind what we're doing is so important.
Yes.
um, and we're focusing on the bad, which are these projects that don't really make sense, to anybody, but they do because that's just how the world works, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I do think that the future holds a special place, and I agree with you that artists can't be left behind. And I don't think they will in the future, right? I think that more people like you who are kind of were on the fence and then decided to jump in. I think they will find a place here, and I think this will be the norm, in 3 years and maybe sooner. To be
Yeah,
quite honest, because I know a lot of these big platforms are getting in.
for
But
sure.
so I think that some of this bad, stuff is short lived. But yeah, I 100% agree that this space is for you. I mean, absolutely for you. I mean, this is the future, and having your work on the blockchain, until the blockchain dies, and really is, if we think about that, until the internet dies, if that ever happens in our lifetime, that's important. That's important. So yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you, DC. Thank you so much. I'm glad I'm here too. And I haven't found a community this incredible, artistic community this incredible in a while. I haven't seen it in a while. Like, I'm just so amazed at how supportive people are, how brilliant and talented everybody is, how humble. And I mean, I don't know, I love our community so much, and I haven't seen it in a long time. Instagram is not like that. It hasn't been like that for sure in a long time. So I won't stop sort of spreading the good word about our community to the outside.
And isn't that funny? Like you said, Instagram isn't like that. And not to hate on Instagram, but look at the difference. Look at the freedom that NFTs give you. The community behind it, and I think that once people get in that energy we always talk about, once people understand what that energy is, and to be part of something that is almost like the internet was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And then the cell phones, being a big thing. I didn't grow up with a cell phone. If you told me back in the 80s that we were going to be walking around with cameras on our phones and all this technology, I would have said, no, we're going to have a flying car first. But yeah, we're still waiting on that flying car. But yeah, I mean, this is the next thing. This is the next big thing, and I'm really glad you're here for it.
Thank you, DC. Yeah, I agree. And what you said about the importance of putting our work on the blockchain, I agree wholeheartedly to that. Like, I think that is just such an important component of everything that we're doing. I'm so excited to be putting these stories on the blockchain and sort of immortalizing them in a way. It's I think like many people, we all came in here because we got excited about the monetary, maybe another revenue stream for artists, because let's face it, being an artist is hard. So it's always exciting when you can find another revenue stream. So maybe that's why we got excited to come in here. But once we're here, that becomes, I don't know, secondary, tertiary, maybe even not of importance at all, because what is really important is putting your work on the blockchain and immortalizing it. At least that's how I feel now. This is more important to me than anything else.
Absolutely. So talk to me about your first experience minting an NFT.
I was following steps blindly because there was one of those Medium articles, do this, do that. And I had no idea what I was just like, just follow the steps, just follow the process, just trust it. I was one of the people who actually made all the mistakes possible, meaning that I jumped in and I minted my first collection right away, which of course, now we know that that's not, you shouldn't really do that. You should really learn, observe, right, build up your community here, and then take that step. I didn't do that because honestly I didn't have anybody to follow. There was only that one person on Instagram that mentioned that, and she became sort of active in the NFT space, so I was following her footsteps, and that's what she did. She minted right away. So I said, I thought maybe that's what you do, so I did that as well. But yeah, so in terms of minting my first one, it was literally like following that Medium article step by step and not really understanding what you're doing, but doing it anyway. And of course, I tell everyone now, don't do what I did. Just really take your time learning first, and you can always mint later. But the most important thing is to learn and to also understand the underlying technology and everything, right? Because that's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. I did that. To be quite honest with you, I did the same thing. So I was just messing around trying to figure out how to do it. And I was trying to figure it out for my wife, actually, because I wanted her to put her art on the blockchain. And then I said, okay, well, I'll just mess around. And of course, I don't even want to look. I mean, I see it sometimes. It reappears. I tried to burn it, but I see the first thing I minted, and it was just it wasn't real art, people. Okay, I didn't think it was gonna sell. I didn't put it for sale. But yeah, I mean, I laugh at it every time I see it. It like comes back to haunt me. It cracks me up because I hide it and then it comes back. It's so funny.
That's so funny.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really a wrong way. I think it's cool that you explored and you learned so much from that. And look at you now. I mean, you're doing so well, and you've I guess I've seen your work on many different places. So you're on OpenSea, you're on Maker's Place, and various other platforms. Have you jumped into the Tezos craze yet, or are you just on Ethereum right now?
The trick question that DC is asking me now. I know there's been discussions about Tezos. I haven't yet, I haven't yet. And that's why, because I'm still not sure how, how should I say it? I have a lot, like you mentioned, I have two collections on OpenSea. And I have a lot of unsold work too. So I'm just not clear how, the work that I will put on Tezos while all, the work that I have here, how does that gonna work? I also have two stories that I can't wait to bring to Sloika. I have two incredible stories, one from Mongolia, one from Jordan, that are ready to go, as my next sort of collection. And they're going to be on Sloika, but I just I'm not sure, because I also don't want to put too much work out there at any one time. And I already, you could say that I have quite a bit of work already out there. I have the one-on-one collection on OpenSea. I have the Maker's Place pieces that I just minted, and I also have the editions collection, the long-term project, that editions collection that I have on NFT or on OpenSea as well, so I understand why people go to Tezos. I understand, like, I'm keeping up with the conversation, and I understand the pros and the cons. I'm just not sure, for me as an artist, when I have so much unsold work on ETH right now, how is it gonna work with Tezos? So I'm sort of still trying to figure that out. So I haven't made any moves yet.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think personally, and this is my own view, I always say that you do you. You're the artist, you're the photographer behind the work. Your opinion of what you do is the most important out of anybody's.
I love that. Thank you for saying that, DC.
Yeah, because if anybody tells you, how to do your job, and you're good at your job. Don't get me wrong. You're very good at it. And if you think you have too much, yeah, I mean, follow your instincts, because at the end of the day, and if you want to explore, then explore. Because I'm always, when I do something, I don't care, but again, it's not this isn't my job, right? My job isn't to make art, and then my job is well, I can't really explain that. I have a lot of jobs, but it's
your job is to be awesome in this community with us.
Well, thank you. But I'm my view on the world is a little bit differently. So when I go to do something, when I go to jump on like Tezos, I'm really there to learn about the ecosystem. And if I put something on there and it sells, wonderful. If it doesn't sell, then whatever. That doesn't bother me. But I'm never thinking about, oh, I got too much work out there or anything like that. But you as the artist, if you think you do, you should follow your instincts for sure. And you should let nobody tell you what to do.
Yeah, no, I just want to clear up that it's not necessarily that I think I have too much work, because I absolutely love all the work that I've put out so far. And I also, like I mentioned, I have two stories that I'm itching to put on Sloika, because I just love those stories so much, So I'm just sort of trying to figure out where it all fits in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes total sense. And I think, yeah, again, you're the master of your own domain.
I love that. And by the way, that's what I love about NFTs. I'm so glad that you put it that way and you said it, DC, because that and even take a step back, why I love being a travel photographer, entrepreneur, educator, because I run workshops, and I do all kinds of things now too. When I was in corporate, I always felt like I wasn't a master of my domain.
Right.
I was working for a company, helping the company sell widgets, because I was a marketer. So I sell any company I work for, I help them sell their widgets, make their profits. I yearn for that freedom of, make your own destiny, do your own projects, follow your desire, like whatever you're interested in, do that. And nobody can tell you yes or no. nobody can tell you what to do or not to do. You're a master, and I love that about this career path, because that's, that fits my personality so well. So and that's why I love the NFT space as well, exactly for that reason. We chart our own path here, and it's so exciting.
Oh man, yeah, that's exactly why I'm excited about this space, because it feels so fresh.
Mm-hmm.
It feels so good. It's and I like being the master of my stuff too. And yeah, I feel you 100% when you're working for somebody. It's like you're doing what they want, right?
Yeah.
And you're not doing what you want. And even if you give your opinion on something, I mean, they might not even care, and then you always feel like if you left, I mean, there's always those people that say, if I leave, this place is going to go down. But I've seen so many people leave over the years and it never goes down, right? You're just
No,
another cog in the machine, right? It's just,
for sure.
yeah. I'm so glad that you made that switch. I mean, I could talk about that for like an hour and a half or more.
Me too.
So I know time flew. Time is flying. And I have so many other questions for you. Let's see. You were in marketing, right? What were there any key learnings from the traditional space that you're bringing into the NFT space? Because like I said, you've been, I've listened to you on Twitter Spaces. I've listened to you talk about your work. You're obviously very successful, working for these magazines. You got these workshops going on. What are you bringing into the NFT space that can help everyone else succeed? What advice would you give people?
Oh, I love that question, DC. That's such a great question. Thank you for that. Three things I would say that come to mind right away. First, the importance of telling stories. People connect to stories, and that's in our human nature to engage with stories. So it's so important that when we put our work out, we tell stories. And it's really important, even in the most sort of practical sense of the word. And I'm glad that you're pulling this collection up, because it's really, what are you putting in the descriptions of each of your NFTs? What is the story behind this collection? Why are you putting this out? What does this mean for you? What is the story? I did a couple of AMAs with the wonderful Mike Schmidt in the Meta Jungle community, where people submit their work and we are reviewing their collections. And I see this so often in our space, unfortunately, that people don't tell stories with their work. They just put they don't put enough, in my opinion, enough attention into telling stories of their work in the descriptions, in the collection itself, in the spaces when you come up and you share your work. Instead of sort of saying, I have this collection, 0.2 ETH, 2 pieces are sold, 7 are available, come check it out. Tell me the story, right? What does this work mean to you? Why are you doing this? It's just so important. That's how we connect with other people. It's through stories. It's fundamental human nature. So that's number one. Number two, I would say your brand. Your brand is so important, and how you present yourself in the space. We talked about this in the beginning a little bit, that it can feel like it's really hard for us to stand out sometimes in the space. So I would say spend some time thinking about what do you want people to know you as, right? What are some of the values that you're bringing? And for me, this was easy because I've already thought about these questions for my work. Outside, you asked me that, like, what drives your work? I know this for myself, but I think that's what you want to communicate. That's what you want to share with people. You want people to know you for your personal brand. And the third thing I would say, which is really the one of the key learnings from my marketing background, is that on average, it takes people about 7 times to start building trust with a message. So we may think that we show up somewhere once, we show up in a space once, and that's enough. But unfortunately, it's not. And in our fast moving space of NFTs, maybe 7 even is not enough. Maybe we need a little bit more. But just that understanding that it takes time, like with anything, right? It takes time to to build the relationships, to build trust with people, for people to get to know you. So I always think about that. And, because I get discouraged too, don't get me wrong. You're saying I'm so successful and I'm doing well, but in the NFT space, and I know it's not me, by the way. I know it's the market, and a lot of people have a lot of unsold work and all of that. But still, sometimes you get discouraged and you're wondering, well, what am I doing wrong, maybe? But then I just bring it back to, well, you're not doing anything wrong. And remember that it takes time for people to, again, to get exposed to your message at least 7 times before they start paying attention or start building a trust with you. So I just remember those 3 things. So telling stories, your personal brand, and consistency.
Wow. Yeah. I agree 100%. Maybe 101%. That's fantastic advice. I mean, I've seen so many people come into a space and they do the same exact thing you said. They jump into a chat and they go, I got 10 of these available and they're for sale, and that's it. And it's like, okay, but who are you, right? Sometimes you get those DMs, if you're collecting stuff, you get like, look at my work, I got 10 of these. Okay, but I'd never seen you or heard from you before, so that's cool. But it takes time. It takes time, yeah. And I'm glad that and you're bringing this experience from your life, right?
Yeah.
And that's important. And I think a lot of people should listen to that experience, because they do get discouraged easy. I get discouraged myself. I'm not. Yeah. I stopped making NFTs for a year,
wow.
Because one, gas was way too high. So when you're paying like $150 to mint something, and then you don't think it's going to sell, it's like, maybe not.
Wow. Yeah, for sure.
But I get discouraged too, and then I'm just like, I'll wait until maybe a better time. And I think that you hit on the point of consistency, and I think it's a hard thing to do when you're discouraged. But you got it. I mean, listen to Yulia. Please. She knows what she's talking about. She really does. No, I mean, you got to think about all these things. Like, be patient, take time, get involved, be part of the community. And then it will happen. I mean, it's just like selling art in the real world. It's no different, right? If nobody knows you, or if people haven't seen your stuff 7 times, like you said, you can't expect that people are just going to jump in and buy everything. I mean, it's tough. I mean, but it takes work. But this is a cool space because you're seeing so many different places. I mean, this is like, once even more people are coming into the space daily, so you're going to be seeing more different. I mean, it's just like, this is the place to be right now, I think. So I don't know. I can ramble on about that for a while.
No, it's a great topic. I love it too. And if I can just add something to that too, because you said, like, I bring my experience in the Web2 world, where, again, becoming a travel photographer and working with these magazines, that wasn't easy either, and it didn't happen overnight either. It took me actually years to get established to the point where now I'm working with all these magazines, and it's awesome. But I think what's important here is, if you're driven by monetary values, you're honestly going to give up, and you're going to say, you know what, I'm discouraged. It's not worth it, right? So I think we need to be driven by something else than that. And I think most artists are, actually, right? We're not doing this for the money at all, but that's why it's easy for us to go on, because we are driven by something else than monetary values or rewards. We are driven by our passions for our craft, for our work. And that's why it's perhaps a bit easier for us to keep going, even when it's hard, I think. So it's really I think it's really important to know, like, why are you here? What is this for you,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And don't get me wrong. If you're just here to create stuff and, you want to see people have it, that's good. If you're here to make money, that's good too. I mean, there's no wrong answer, but
for sure.
Just got to be here, right?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. And keep going and don't get discouraged. Consistency is really important in anything we do in life. I really believe that if you apply yourself to whatever you want to do and you're consistently showing up, sooner or later you will see results. It's just, I honestly believe it's fundamentally like a law of nature or something, that if you apply yourself to something and you're consistent in it, you will get results, maybe sooner, maybe later, but you will get results. So that's really important.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Before I ask my last question, we do have a POAP, everybody. We have quite the POAP following right now. And I want to get the secret code phrase out. So if you have your cell phone ready and you have the POAP app up, yeah, that was hard to say. Um, uh, you want to get that up and you want to put that secret code phrase up. You won't want to miss this POAP because this is, man, it's really good. So I'm going to put the artwork up, and while I after I say the code word, I'm going to type it. But I'll have Yulia talk about this piece here. But the secret code word is traveling with. Can you guess? It's YD. So that's Yulia's initials. So traveling with YD, one word, no capitalization, no nothing. Traveling with YD. Put that in for the secret code word. I'm going to type it in some places. And Yulia, tell us about this piece. And then I have one last question for you. And then, yeah, we'll close the stream up.
Perfect. But which piece? Sorry, which piece am I talking
Yes, I have to click. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Yes, the passage of time. This I love this work so much. This is, when people ask you what is your favorite work or what is the shot that you always think about, this is it for me. This is it for me. This shot means so much to me because it represents my photography style. Uh, you know, um, Light fields, putting subjects in the scene strategically, thinking carefully about what's in the frame, what's out of the frame, but also philosophically. I just really love what this image represents philosophically, which for me, it represents how we deal with life. Some people are on the sidelines looking in and maybe taking a moment to observe all the action. And some people are really in the action and they're sort of, going, zipping by, so to speak. So I think this image is just so philosophical. Um, and it has many meanings in it, when you take the time to look at it, and I just love that it also represents, my photography style. And I shot this shot in Hanoi in Vietnam when I was staying there for a month at the beginning of that journey that I told you. And I was walking down a busy street and I saw this woman. She was selling lottery tickets, Vietnam lottery, it's everywhere. And I immediately, before I saw her and I immediately knew in my head, this is the image I want. Like it was so weird. Like I had it in my head. This is what I want. Her in the center, motorcycles zipping by as light shadows, motion blurs, and I, quickly reacted, put my settings the right way, and because I also didn't know how long she was gonna stay there. Maybe she'll move. Sometimes a second and the scene is gone. So it's a very special experience for me, and I'm so proud of this work, and it's one of my favorite images.
Oh, that is fantastic. I absolutely fell in love with this image.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I am a huge fan. Uh, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Because I so there's times when I do like an open call on Twitter, right? And I'm looking through I don't think I think I'd be exaggerating if I said hundreds. Maybe like 70 images, and then I try to look through the stories of the images, and then I go to the artist. I mean, it's a process.
Right.
But this image stood out so much to me. And it's funny because sometimes I sit down with my wife and we look at the images together.
Oh, amazing.
Because I always need a second opinion, or
Mhm.
sometimes a third or fourth. And
Mhm.
we both really love the shot. And it's funny because I know I told you that it reminded me of that movie that I really like.
I love that so much.
It's,
That yeah.
I mean, doesn't it though?
Yes, yes, yes. No, absolutely. And for everything everywhere all at once, right? Was the movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And I literally just watched it recently, and I'm in love with that movie. And when you said that, I was just so happy that that's what it reminds me of.
Oh, and it's so good. I don't even like how okay. How do you capture? So you have this focus of this incredible focus in the center.
Mm-hmm.
You have these these flashes moving by with everything, and then you even have the focus in the back. I don't even know how that's possible. I mean, I wouldn't. I'm not. I'm no like really good for. I'm not a good photographer. I take
Mm-hmm.
pictures. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I don't call myself a photographer. I don't call myself an artist. I take pictures. I make art. There you go. But no, I. How do you even capture that? I mean, is it a special setting or what?
Well, and this is funny because for years, for years I was shooting in auto, so I didn't even know what manual mode was. So when I decided to become a travel photographer, I was like, okay, I need to learn manual mode. I need to be able to what's the word, manipulate the settings of the camera to what I need. This is really important as a photographer, right? To learn that you can manipulate the settings to what you are trying to create. So at that point, I was already quite comfortable with my manual settings. So basically, what I knew I needed to do is I needed to slow down shutter speed just enough so that people that were moving by, were those sort of blurry elements, but not slow it so much that it becomes out of focus, or you cannot distinguish them because there's a gradient there, right? And I
Yeah,
also knew that my aperture, I didn't want to have too much of an aperture, like let's say 2.8 or 3 or 4, because then the background would be out of focus. So I don't remember right now what the aperture was at here, but from the looks of it, it was maybe 5, maybe 7-ish, 8-ish, something like that. But that calculation needed to happen quickly in my head, because again, like the scene was happening in front of me, and I was like, this is what I want, this image. So I was like, like, it was like that.
wow, that is crazy. Man, that, and I learned a few things, so I'm happy about that. Wow, that, I mean, what a great shot. Nightmare
Thank you
really
so
liked
much.
it too. I put it up on screen. I'll do it again real quick to give him a shout out. There we go.
Thank you so much.
um, we don't cancel Nightmare, we cancel Rune, who you saw earlier. So yeah, I mean, that's fantastic. I'm going to check with the audience. Audience, tell me if you got the Poe app. Did it work? Um, well, I'm seeing some gifts. That doesn't help. If you got the Poe app, yes. Okay, I got a yes from, and then Nightmare says Poe absolutely. That's just terrible. Uh, such bad jokes. Oh, okay. So, one final question for you. Uh, let's see. Where do you see the NFT space in the next 5 years?
Wow. That's a tough one. DC, that is a tough one.
Okay. Let me. Where do you see the NFT space, NFT photography space in the next 5 years? Let's put it. Okay, we'll go with that.
My wish is that the space has evolved. My wish is that the space evolves to the point that artists have the freedom to create and to tell stories that they've always wanted to tell with the NFT space. Because I think ultimately, at least for me, that's what's really exciting about this space, is that it gives me the potential to tell the stories that I've always wanted to tell, perhaps to new audiences too, right? Because I don't think there is so much overlap between the NFT community and the audiences who are sort of, let's say, part of my work in the Web2 world. So I'm excited about the fact that I can create and share these stories with this audience and do more and more and more of that in the future. So I think right now the space is very unstable, right? We all know sort of how it's kind of swinging back and forth. Last year was crazy for photography, crazy good. This year is a bit rocky for photography, but my hope is that it stabilizes to the point where artists who dedicate themselves in their craft and their time and their efforts in the space are successful, so that they can keep creating and keep sharing stories. This is like it gives me goosebumps to think that that's, you know, that's something that we and more artists can do. Because at the end of the day, I think if you're an artist, that's what you want to do. You want to create your work, you want to share your stories, and you know, this is why we're here. So I hope my prediction comes true, and that's what happens in the next 5 years in the space.
Oh, I hope so too. I hope so too. This has been amazing. And I'm gonna be completely honest with you and everybody else. I went completely off script. So, you know, I may have thrown in one question that I had written down, but yeah, I had a fantastic time talking with you. So for those viewing, tell us where we could find your work, and definitely follow Yulia. So I will put her Twitter there for everybody to follow. But yeah, tell everyone where they could find your work, just so we have a record of it here. And then tell us what's next for you. What are you doing next, if you can? Because you could always say, nope, I'm not telling anybody. I'm just going to do it.
Totally. Well, yeah, I will say that, and then I'll also say that I loved our conversation today, DC. It was so awesome. So where can people find my work? Well, my NFT work is on OpenSea. I have a one-on-one collection out, and an long-term editions project out. I'm also on Maker's Place. Thank you so much for that opportunity to the whale community. And soon, hopefully, I will be on Sloika with new work from Mongolia and from Jordan that I'm really excited to share with people. I'm on Twitter, of course. Although right now, the next 2 weeks, I'm right now staying in Provence in the south of France with my friends, so I'm taking a little bit of a break from Twitter. But I'll be back, and I do spaces. I'm active in the community as well. So definitely let's connect. If anything that I've said today resonated with you, definitely connect. I'm happy to connect with more people. In terms of what's next for me, I have an assignment in the Black Forest, Germany, coming up, where I'll meet with Pascal, which I'm really excited about, one of our NFT photographers. And after that, I have trips to Jordan coming up. I'm leading a group there, actually, because that's another thing that I do. And some work in Poland, and let's see, where else? And Kazakhstan. So that's what's coming up for me.
Wow, that is amazing. Oh man, this is great. So everybody, I put the links to Yulia's Twitter and her link tree. So definitely follow her on Twitter. Connect with her. She wants to hear from you. We had quite the audience here, and everyone's excited about that POAP. Of course, that's made with Yulia's work, so that's really amazing. I got it myself. I got to be honest, I was the first one, so I had to test it out. Okay, I had to test it out. So that's amazing. But this has been fantastic. You know, the pleasure's been all mine. I love doing these interviews, and you've been a fantastic guest. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Me too, DC. Thank you so much. And I want to say that you're an excellent host. You ask very great questions, even though you said you went off script. Your questions were very, you know, very well thought and very excellent questions. I had such a great time with you, and I appreciate so much. I said that to you before we started recording. I appreciate so much, and I know many artists in our community. We appreciate so much what you guys are doing for us. It's really special. We are so grateful for your efforts, and I love it, and I love that I'm part of this community and this effort. So thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so happy. And yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in to Camera Culture, and we do this every week so far. So it'll be every Thursday or Wednesday, or depending on scheduling. So definitely tune in for our next Camera Culture. But Yulia, very special to have you here again. And thanks everybody for watching. And with that, let's say goodbye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today.
Bye, everybody.